morning, everybody. Welcome to Silverstone and welcome to the BARC race meeting here on Saturday, 29th of May. And let's go to Silver Lake. I should say, in the box. Yes, indeed, plenty going on. And another very familiar voice and name with us this weekend is the wonderful Alan Hyde, who is down in the studio and the pit lane this weekend. How are you, Alan? Well, I think they get a bit on, get some steps in, and before you know it, you'll be in the hundreds of thousands. realising I'm going to move all the way now. He's actually right in the middle of the road. Upfield. Trying to get out of the way. You don't get kept on the inside, those people go around him. Then realise he's not going to make it all the way back. Turns left. And go left. There has been a good history of prototype categories that have a relatively open rule book in terms of what can come out, but changing of guard between categories, for example, the TN or the technically superseded by LMP3, there's often some disagreement as to what cars can come and play and what can't, but the open class here in sports prototype stuff is very much run what you run, and but an overwhelming majority of them will be sent out there to Monza. I don't think any owners of eligible cars are going to miss the opportunity to be on the Grand Prix build later this year. Yeah, but
So the sessions will come to an end. We've got final
group of them that couldn't have properly at that point, but it seems like a lot of them now are just sort of taking their foot on the gas. They know they've got their best time. Absolutely, but I think there's certainly sort of elements of getting every bit of track time you can. This is not necessarily a rare treat, but it doesn't come around all that often. Wonderful day, wasn't it? I tell you what, incredible. So, well, thank you very much. It's lovely to have a chat with you and the radio house. And on the other side of the souvenir building, and the other side of the night, and I think it's called the work upon. And hopefully you got the phone over the airways of the big green smile. Oh yeah, yeah. He's a passionate man. To be fair, the problem about drivers and anything else like this is that they just love doing what they're doing. You know, they're not doing it because they're being nature or because they just, you know, it's just like it's a job for them. It's similar to us with something, you know, we love doing what we do, we enjoy every moment of it, we just enjoy motorsport for what it is, and make something of it, and just, you know, share our passion for it with people, and we do something that's very important, but I think it's a good moment for it, without exception, every single person yeah, definitely. We're very positive side of doing today. To be fair, it's obviously the eye contact one of the things that I'm happy with, but it's my lazy eye. I can't get away with it. I think I'm looking for help, don't get in trouble by it. But either way, we've got the Citroen C1 going out very, very shortly now. I believe the Finland will be they're already out there. Yeah, they are. Yeah, there's one or two stops in Finland sort of, you know, but they are already out on track, so they'll be really about 3 to 5 weeks a day going out. Yeah, well, we've already got the first of the cars to win, 394 80 Motorsport car, which didn't seemingly come out about 30 seconds before everything else. And just one car taking advantage of warm up, but thankfully now being joined on track by some of the others. So this was nearly the warm-up session. They did all of their qualification yesterday into the dust and into the dark hours here at Silverstone, and I was in the paddock for that as well, and it was a great atmosphere. Very much felt like a back to school atmosphere almost among the various teams, which most of them have done some running already this year, and I think after the extended absence from the last of these C1 24 hours taking place in 2019, they're obviously very to be back here and ready to go quite round the clock. Yeah, there's been a real sort of injection of life into these cars in general. You know, you see it's such an affordable racing package in these, and then you see what, you know, there's so much fun to look at. Been a sector of that's the fact of the day. There you go. So what have they done instead? Well, it's also that's on cars, isn't it? Right? 4, 5. Oh, I think I don't know. So really, you didn't take me to bring the thing on. Right. I'll tell you. Yeah, exactly. So it's expected. So you have the swing journey, which is expected. Yeah, It's very much the nature of what it's been doing a weekend this is a half an hour. Yeah, no, I've never had that. Yeah, I've never had people volunteer in sports. So maybe that's just the Allied touch, you know. Remember this being in Rotterdam all of the couple of days after welcoming your first child. A very committed racer. Yeah, well, there's a lot of really involved in motorsport, a lot of involved in background. So you can have these happy things going on. I specifically remember Paul Rose having a very wonderful weekend when I commentated the end of time on the BARC. He was racing in the, I think it's the CNC head in his sector. And he did the first race of the day at the BARC, flew by helicopter to Donaldson. Then did a few hours of this at the front stop and then flew back to did the next CNC head race. He won most CNC head races that day. It's just unbelievable the level of commitment this guy. This race is using cars back out travelers and you know, some of the liveries as well, they just put straight on these cars and quite a lot of real estate at the side of to get bombs off the ones together with some liveries. Absolutely, and they do take creative liberties at times. It's very, very well turned out cars. Some of them around other larger machines that have been run by the same team. The Northamptonshire car, driven by Martin Short, both of his sons, Andy and Vincent, in this is in the traditional green and black that they've been running for a number of years. At this point, so that's a very well turned out. I must also say a word to Power Racing when it comes to well turned out machines. Well, they've redelivered pretty much everything they've got this season. The Citroen C1 was there. I think the cars have had some new vinyl wrap on it for the season as well. And Power Racing, of course, they are Ford specialists, but they love budget endurance racing as a whole. Great to see them out there with that kind of hybrid, as it was put to me by Andy Burton, a hybrid of Colin Prevost Rally for Focus and the traditional colours of Power Racing, albeit on Citroen. So the season's good there, but it's a very well turned out car. So the car like the 3.4 is looking rated car. I'm expecting that that's going to look like a bigger. I'm very glad that they're building more. But, you know, there are wonderful looking cars out there, and I suppose, I'm not sure how much of a nerd you are for livery, Gary, but do you ever have a sort of favourite livery of the day? But of the other... Would you answer a question? Yes, livery related. Do you choose a sort of favourite livery of the day? It's a blue one, yeah. We saw like the one of the fellows. is very sudden, and that was certainly a way out of very small car, of course, but it looked very interesting sometimes to see what people in the race of the driver and the city car. There were a couple of accidents actually. I think there's another thing that kind of getting back to our business, isn't it? All 20 this kind of blockbuster. Yeah. It's actually in a Royal Mail. Yes. It looks like a little delivery car. Oh, a personal postman pack. We had a bit of an incident here at Maggotts Beckett. One of the cars had to take the gravel and another has spun. Looks like both of them are going to get underway under an hour. Hopefully there wasn't no contact between the two of them. Can't make out quite the number there, but thankfully both of them may be losing about 15 seconds and none of them using any paintwork or body panels, so that was about as ideal as it's been at Maggotts Beckett to see. And thankfully everyone continues on their way, but there is certainly an element of testing the limit, even in these C1 or something ridiculous like that, but there's a lot more to it because these, more or less than they are, completely got road car tyres. I don't allow too much grip, and there is certainly an element of chucking into the corner and hoping not to scrub off too much speed, things like that. Also, certainly qualifying grip, I dare say not so much over the 24-hour race. Drivers are trying very hard to actually push the car around the bend and making use of the curves quite significantly. Wouldn't want to take that out to driver or car all night long, but certainly in qualifying there will be taken on corner entry. Yeah, you can definitely feel the curve more. And someone definitely takes first-time delivery to someone will rush this practice at the moment. So they have that as well as the practice. How is it about how we've done it open? Still not the bottom. So what we're getting. I don't think I'm going to be saying on a board. We should put it the wrong Well, the other problem is the speed is 70 at the moment. If we draw the first one of that, we just have to pull the endurance, which is, which I thought I was going to that's the issue now. Although he's cool, the driver in that car at the moment is the number 73 so all the green that's right. Although yeah, I've got that actually as because I've got the 73 as the insurance fee. But that's going to be what I think it's not my hand, I don't want to get applied with that. You got to think of it as right off after the I can't actually take too much of it as well. No, you don't need to take it off. But I've got the 373 with hang on to the wheel, but I've got that to the way motor. The right hand as well. I've got it, I'm going to try this one. We'll go to so in this midway is the 3, what's the next number down now? 375? I think this is that one I know that I should go on to pick this down. Maybe it's just good so the 369 is just good as well. On my end, 373. So, yeah, so I think it's on the line. Actually, let's just check. So it is 360 from the big midway. This is the production. What is the production? No, this is coming up in the jury. The graphic jury. I can't hear this. Myself and Sergio on the first one. There was quite a few this game made for the first one, the C1 24-hour relatively C1. And myself and Sergio have come up with quite a few pre-warning tests. So there was one I think we had more posters around the DFS, so very
Very much looking forward to seeing how that plays out in the race. I mean, qualifying, of course, there's also going to be the Mentor and final traffic at the opportune moments of the lap. If you find them at Hanger Straight, that's much easier.
And obviously, because it's a long lap as well, it's more likely that you're not going to be able to judge how much clear air you're going to have in front of you or even behind you if you're in one of the MX-5s worrying about the Caterham. So we'll see quite a lot going on. We've just got a car being recovered at Stowe, which is the number 377 machine.
Right.
That's just being towed away at the moment. They're just trying to get it to the back of the truck. I think they may be trying to bump start it. They're just dragging it behind.
So you've got CCTV as well.
I do,
wow.
and there's a very good operator who said CCTV, because as soon as I'd picked it up, the operator zoomed in on the car so I could see what number it is. It's very high quality stuff, so I'm very truly spoiled up here. I think we may have underestimated who got the better commentary box. But yeah, I'm looking forward to these, and to be fair, being openly honest with you all, I'm a humongous sim racing nerd and an iRacing fan, and in iRacing you can drive the Mazda MX-5 Mark III and Mark IV, so to see these things racing in the real world, it really does sort of pull on my heartstrings a little bit, because I just love seeing them. You know, I've spent lots of time in them in the sim and trying to build up the so-called iRacing career in that, and you know, use those cars to that advantage. And I've actually won a race recently around here in the Mazda MX-5 Mark IV as well, so it's going to be great to see these things out in the real world. I've not really commentated on any MX-5 racing before. I joined my co-commentator friend Chris Dawes on a sort of commentary section before when I was already up in the box, so he said, do you want to jump on this MX-5 race? Yeah, why not? So we did some, that was MX-5 Mark III's a while ago, but yes, very much looking forward to this. And like you say, Adam, it's going to be such a strange mix to have these Caterhams with the MX-5s, but it just makes it all the more spicy so you don't get runaways.
Absolutely. Just before we lose the data on the timing screen, I will run through the top 10 from warm-up. The 397 hybrid tune entry, as we said, was the quickest of the group, 301.154. Just under half a second clear of Team Crossacre. I believe it was Joseph Watt at the wheel of the 483 at the time, second in the session. Wieners Motorsports number 463 was next, 1.3 seconds off on a 302.460. The 509, the Mad Rabbit racing car of newly bearded Rob Austin, 1.4 seconds off the fastest time, fourth in the warm-up session. BH Motorsport 504 in fifth, the 420 Wombles in sixth, the 432 Rabsport racing car in seventh place on a 303.763. The 414 Trimite Racing with PrepTech UK was in eighth, ahead of another team, the Endurance entry, Adam Norris, in the car at the end of the session. Not sure if he was the quickest of them, the 369. And then rounding out the top 10, where we'll round this little rundown off, the Fighting Torque car, finishing with a 304.175 as their best time. So the top 10 covered by 3 seconds. Again, would expect that to go down a little later on. I think some of the teams at the sharp end in this session, you heard Rob Austin there saying not quite where I'd like to be in quali. I think some of them, just with a little bit of pride at stake, with slightly fewer cars out on circuit compared to the quali session this morning in warm-up, taking the opportunity to find a clear bit of track and actually see what the car can do on one lap pace in a slightly less hectic environment than the nighttime quali they had yesterday. So I think a few of them going very quickly and looking for quali pace effectively, and some of them going for race pace.
One of the teams that is testament to what you just said, Adam, was Team Dynamics. I was talking to one of the Neil boys. I say this very quietly. I'm not sure which one it was.
Henry or Will?
Well, William D, as he is in the entry. It's a very posh entry. But they are remarkably similar.
Yes.
And I don't know. So when I speak to them, I shall refer to them as Neil Minor. And then I've got every base covered. But they were saying, that the car has arrived with just a very short lead time to get it here for the race weekend. So they've done as much as they possibly can with the car. It's potentially, as we've already seen during night qualifying, wasn't the quickest of cars, but that's not necessarily what wins a 24-hour race or does well in a 24-hour race. And am I right in saying that the last time we had a 24-hour race for these cars, the winner came from the very back of the grid?
That is the anecdote.
You see,
yes.
so there you go. There is the tale. Outright pace in qualifying is really not so important, but certainly consistency during the race is ultimately the thing that brings success.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's more merit in this category than, say, the modern day Le Mans 24-hour to preserving the machinery. The go-to phrase at Le Mans these days is that it's a 24-hour sprint. I don't think that rings so true with these near stock Citroen C1s. I'm sure there is some validation. I'm sure some teams will be pushing each and every lap for 24 hours, but I think here more so than many upper echelons of endurance racing, there's merit to just keeping the car on a short lead and not necessarily wringing its neck each and every lap.
Yeah, there is a bit of an art form to driving these cars, and sometimes it's not even down to pushing as hard as humanly possible all the way through the race. You've just got to be smooth and gentle with the cars sometimes, and yes, you may give it a lap or so to sort of put a bit of heat into the tyres if you feel like they're not quite up to operating temperature, but still it's going to be intriguing to see how people manage it over the race. And one of my favourite variations or variables that you do get in races like this is the difference between the pace in just the drivers in one car. So I've often seen in a lot of forms of motorsport, as I'm sure both of you have as well, that if you get, say, a GT series where the drivers have to do a driver swap, you'll get maybe the quicker driver of the two in the car first or the slower of the two drivers in the car first. They'll either fly off into the distance up the road and then be reeled in later on in the race, or they'll sort of fall back into the midfield a little bit, maybe even further back than that, and then suddenly make a big resurgence later on. It just makes it all the more interesting and unpredictable for us, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I think, in regards driving these cars, the key word was said by Alan a little while ago talking to Rob, momentum. Very much key. And yes, the driver plays a massive part in the form of the car. A lot of people say, especially with the modern GT cars, to continue on from what you said, Chaz, they drive themselves, they have traction control, they have ABS in GT3. Well, if you look at some series where there's quite an open playbook, the GT3 cars in the wrong hands sometimes end up slower than some GT4s. I won't say names, but I've seen it happen before. It's still very much a driver. It's driver centric, no matter what you're in. The driver has a big part to play, even if they have more aids to help them on their way. The driver is still absolutely integral, and I think there are categories. There are none more so is the driver critical than in the Caterhams, and they're now out there on circuit going through Maggots and Beckett's for the first time in this opening qualification session, and I'm sure all of them wrestling with the wheel on these cold tyres in particular.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a lively first few minutes, to be fair.
Yep.
These guys will be just trying to find that limit, like you mentioned before, Adam. You know, you've got to try and find the limits in the C1s, and you've got to try and find the limits in these cars as well. And it's all about trying to do that as early as possible in a session like this, while not taking too much of a risk, because you don't want to put the car in the gravel early on. You want to get a banker lap in and then start to push the limits. But you know, these guys are racing drivers. They're going to push as hard as they can straight away, just to make sure they're not at any disadvantage on said banker lap.
It looks like the powers that be have been rather wise here as to how they've sent the cars out. I suppose they had some time to do some shuffling while we recovered the car at Stowe. But they've let the Caterhams out, and then the Mazdas have come out separately, which is obviously going to be optimal for the Caterham drivers. They will catch the Mazdas, no doubt, over the course of the next 17 minutes and 40 seconds. But for now, they're going to get a couple of laps to themselves without having to worry about any traffic from cars that are dramatically slower than them. But they do, of course, have to worry about finding potentially a slipstream buddy. That goes well here at Silverstone Grand Prix in particular, and also, of course, have to find a fast driver to follow. You don't want to get held up in some of the more technical sections.
Yeah, that's the thing again. Different variables of where cars are quicker than one another. Obviously, the Caterham's been quicker in pretty much all aspects than something like the Mazda 2, but you know, some of them may be able to carry a little bit more pace through the corners, and it depends then on the driver. There's a big train of them just coming past me here at Woodcote, the 66, 56, 45, 54 and 167, and then there's another train behind them, some of them too wide as they go across the line. There's a train of 8 of them all cross the line within about 2 seconds of one another, and there's just a constant stream. It's like someone's kicked a beehive and they've all just absolutely come pouring out of Luffield. You love to see it though, because all of these drivers just vying for position on track, and we've seen it before with slipstreaming and all of the mind games you have to play in racing in Caterhams, that they're just going to help each other over the course of laps. Some of them will get in front now before they get to the Hanger Straight, for example, and then they'll get back ahead down there, and then maybe even swap again towards the end of the lap down the straight towards Brooklands.
Oh, there's always an element of musical chairs, absolutely, especially in Caterham qualifying. I mean, you talked about it in the race, the top 10 switching at will from corner to corner, braking zone to braking zone, and we do see that in qualifying as well. Just because we're not racing, don't think that we may still lose an odd Caterham wheel arch here or there over the course of the next quarter of an hour.
Well, like you say, just because we're not racing doesn't mean we're not racing.
Yes.
that's pretty much how these boys are going to treat it, and I thoroughly look forward to seeing how this session shapes up at the end. We've got one of the Mazda 2s just going past now, the number 33 machine that has just crossed the line now. That is being driven by Neil Shaw, one of the 2 Mazda 2s out there. Andrew Stacey in the other one, number 25 car. We'll be keeping an eye out for him as well. But I imagine they're quite good fun as well to get around here actually. Again, bit of body roll, but you get to feel the car a bit more through that, don't you?
Absolutely, and I mean, talk to anyone who's been at the wheel of a Caterham and they'll tell you that the feedback through the wheel is second to practically nothing else on road or on track. They're very much drivers' cars. Sometimes they fight against you rather than with you with some of the higher power units, the likes of the 620R, the full fat Caterham. That is a rather more hairy experience, but certainly these little Sigma 150s, still incredibly fast machines. But, they are a little more controllable. I think they work with you rather than against you a majority of the time.
Well, I only realised the other day, this shows how little I know about Caterhams, because I'm one of these. I'm not shallow in that way, but I'm sort of quite ignorant of the fact that they are all different. I'm one of these people that looks at them and goes, oh, they're all the same, similar to people do with Porsches. But I only realised the other day that the numbers of the Caterhams, when the R500 came out, I thought, flipping heck, 500 brake in a Caterham, it must be nuts. But I thought, how are they getting 500 brake out of that? But it's obviously brake horsepower per tonne,
Yes.
is how it's measured. Now, the
Yes.
R500 is actually a little bit more than 500, but let's face it, it's a nice number. You don't want to call it the R507 or something.
No.
But the 620, now that scares the life out of me. That 620 brake horsepower per tonne in a Caterham, that'd be a very, like you say, a hairy experience nonetheless.
Absolutely. So these Sigma 150s are effectively in 310R specification, to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. So about just over 310 bhp per tonne through the 1600cc Ford engine under the bonnet. And I believe any car from 2014 or onwards can be upgraded to this specification, and they are very impressive little race cars, very good packages to go racing in. You mentioned the Caterham Academy. I believe everyone in the Caterham Academy has to be in their rookie season, so
Yes.
that's the start of the ladder, and these are some of the next rungs, the graduates. So drivers coming up through the Caterham system, some of them going out into the outer regions, the further regions of sports car racing from there. So lots of these drivers maybe just in their second season of racing, and surely loving every minute of it.
Oh yeah, it's a phenomenal platform. Really is a phenomenal platform, because they're such fantastic drivers' cars that people really do get the chance to enjoy what a race car can do and get that real race car feel, while not having to sort of fork out all of the money in the world, you know. And with it being one make racing, we all know how good one make racing is and how much of a level playing field you get. So Caterham have provided such a wonderful platform, like I say, for all of these people to be able to just get started, because like you say, they can go anywhere they want from here. You know, they could go into other Caterham series, they could invest in other cars and go into completely different programs, but it just gets them the racing experience in a very level playing field early on. Now, looking at the times on the board, because I probably should pay attention to the times, Elwood is currently fastest, although I say that McCormack literally knocks him off the top spot there by 0.3 of a second in the 125. There's about another 400 of them about to cross the line, just coming out over the field now, so we'll see whether they improve. Yates has jumped up to 4th position in the 114. Very aptly, the 55 is P5 with Lopez Appleton at the wheel, and then Earlham has now dropped down to 6th place in the number 3. But big old field here, of course, in the 150s. Now in the B class we have Greenhill fastest at the moment with 33rd overall. Then in the A class, which is the Mazda MX-5 Mark IVs, we've got Lovisage in 34th place, he leads that class. And then in class D we have the 184 car of Ben Taylor. He's the only car in that class though, so he's both first and last in his class at the moment. In the Mazda RX-8, rotary engine car as well. They love a bit of oil, do a Mazda RX-8. I had a friend who had one and it burnt a hell of a lot of it. But these MX-5s, I must admit, I think, while I really, really like the sort of finished, very neat style of the Mark IV, I love how beefy and chunky the Mark III is.
Yes, the Mark II and Mark III, if you look at them at the right angle, they almost look like a miniature, almost like a Dodge Viper of about the same time. The Mark II in particular,
Yeah.
if you take the plates off of one of those and look from a couple of feet away, it doesn't look too dissimilar. Mark IV was kind of a return to a more compact, I dare say cute kind of styling.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
all very immaculate cars, of course. Mazda put a lot of thought and effort into their styling and all of the minor details throughout the car. Focusing though on the sharp end of the Caterham order, McCormack had been quickest on a 2:27 for the first flying laps. As you said, Elwood very briefly sweeped in there to take the top of the timing sheets before McCormack set his second lap at 2:26.2. That's getting there or thereabouts for that particular driver, for Jason McCormack. So I think he's going to be right up there at the sharp end of the order. There's another driver we'd expect to be towards the sharp end who's just leapt 5 positions up to third. That's the 1-2-1 of Harry Kramer. So Kramer making his way up, and just look at the number of green arrows coming in on the TSL sheet now. If you're looking at that on your phone on the spectator bank, you'll see exactly what we're talking about. About 7 green arrows all appeared at once. That was another one of those gaggles of 400 that you were referencing, wasn't it, coming across the line?
Yeah, just waiting for the other 400 to come around now. But yeah, there is a huge train. They're only just catching the back of the Mazda traffic now, though, which is quite interesting. So they've had a good few laps under their belts to avoid them, but now they're getting to the point where they're catching them. So this is where we'll see a bigger variation in the lap times. But it was a really good lap by David Yates last time round in the 114 car. He's actually, I've got just below him as well. Actually, I've got that Harry Kramer is from Northwich as well, right near me. So I should maybe be in touch with Harry and see if we can car share or something, so I don't have to pay for diesel. No, I'm joking. But no, it's great to see the Northwich name on the map. To be honest, that's always nice to see.
So 2:26.1 now from McCormack. He improved again on that last time by. And it's going to be very intriguing now, as you say, they've caught up to the Mazda traffic. Is that going to be the barrier? Is that going to be the wall? Or is anyone going to get into the 225s, even in amongst the MX-5s? The 111 MX-5 there, just getting a little bit loose here in front of my commentary position into the first proper braking zone if you're using the wing pit lane. And didn't get in anyone's way, fortunately, but I think maybe just scared himself slightly more than anything, the driver of the 111. Another one of the cars with the yellow and black crosses on the back. I think it is actually on the entry list as the 11, in fact, Joe Jacob, but he does have 3 ones on the side of his car. But the yellow and black cross, if you're new to attending club level race meetings, it means they've done 6 meetings or less, and a great number of black and yellow crosses, not just in this class, many of them in the C1s as well. So good to see so many drivers kind of funneling in. Maybe a few people, having looked at 2020 and all that didn't happen, have decided to go and follow a dream or two in 2021.
Yeah, there is a really, really good spread, and like you say, I did think that about Joe Jacob. I was looking up and down for the 111 machine. I was thinking, hang on. But yeah, maybe he's just getting a spread of both numbers. You see, he's like number 11 is going for P1 in the old classic "I'm going for first," says John Cleland way. But I'm just looking at the difference now. We're right about these Mazda 2s, you know, because one of them's just gone past here with a Caterham absolutely flying around the outside of it, and the roll cage barely does come up to the height of the window, so that, you know, they would have to really rely on the mirrors to see them beforehand, because you certainly wouldn't see them in the short time that they're next to you. Yes, well, I mean, BARC were here a few weeks ago with the Brick Car Endurance Championship, and I know that the particularly low-slung Pragas that the likes of sim racer Jimmy Broadbent was driving, the guys in the GT3s, the GT4s are very much struggling to see them, and it's much the same principle here with the especially the Mazda 2s and the RX-8 and the Caterhams. I mean, the Mazda 2 practically looks like someone's driving a Transit on the track in amongst the Caterhams, doesn't it? I'm sure they'd be happy at you comparing their car to a GT3 or a GT4 car, though. And I did a Transit as well, so I got the balance in there, didn't I? one end of the scale to the other, very much so. So McCormack's still fastest then, from Yates, Elwood, Kramer and Winrow in 5th place, which is Jamie Winrow. Then you've got the 113 car of Andrew Perry just behind him, and then the 102 car of James, let's get this right, Chance, De Lusignan? How would you go for that one, Adam? De Lusignan? I'd go Lusignan, yeah. That would be my I think sometimes I try and make it too fancy. Then we've got Lopez Appleton behind Earlham, and in 10th place we have the number 129 of Tim Child. But there is such a big spread of these cars. But to be fair, I mean, top 30 covered by 4.8 seconds around a lap that's over, well, about 2.5 minutes. That's pretty good going. That's incredibly close. Yes, and just starting to see illustrations now on the timing screen of the traffic coming into play. Elwood's last lap time included a fastest first sector of 44.317, purple first sector, fastest that anyone has gone, and then he lost about 0.3, if not more, in the final sector, which you can only imagine is down to some traffic-related stifling.
So that is the hurdle they're going to have to worry about. There goes Lopez Appleton to a 2:26.378 in the 55 car. So
Nice.
he's within a quarter of a second now of the marker laid down by the 1:25 of McCormack, Jason McCormack. And it's another driver that's been in the Caterham system for a little while there in the 55 car, Benjamin Lopez Appleton.
Sorry, just noticed very interestingly that Elwood has the fastest sector in each sector so far. He's actually set individually on each of his laps, he's set the fastest sector at some point of the entire session, but he's never strung them all together to actually go fastest. McCormack's actually just done the fastest first sector now, I say that. There's a typical commentator's curse for you. So he's on it at the moment, but I'm wondering whether he's going to get any traffic because, as you've said, Adam, there is a big variation now of who's hitting the traffic and who's not.
Yes, I'll keep an eye out for the 1:25 car as it emerges from the shadow of the wing and see how much traffic that Jason McCormack is going to have to deal with.
We've got a car going very slowly here on its way into the pit lane. Now it looks to me there's no real damage on the front end by the look of it. It looked like it had lost a headlight, but it hasn't. It's just blending in because it's a white car. I'm trying to see which number that is. It's the number 23 machine, which in the session so far sits down in 32nd place. The number 23 being driven by Martin Gleich, and he's creeping his way down the pit lane. It's not going very quickly at all. It was going very slowly before Luffield, and it doesn't seem to be picking up the pace again, so maybe he's just babying it in and hoping that he can at least get it fixed before the race later on.
So the 1:25, I believe, has been and gone past me, and was in amongst the Caterhams, but not Mazdas. Let's see what the time is. It ends up being a 2:28.4, but to the top of the sheets goes Kramer, a 2:26.1. And then there's McCormack. I thought that wasn't the makings of a 2:28. Sure enough, having set a fastest first sector of the session, a personal best second sector, another personal best in sector 3, puts him below the 2:26s. First time we've seen that in the session from anyone. A 2:25.804 for Jason McCormack puts him on provisional pole, and well, everyone who crosses the line from this point onward only has one more flying lap in their arsenal. We're just within the last 75 seconds of the session now. There's another one to the top.
Yep, indeed. Jamie Winrow goes fastest in the number 46 machine, a 2:25.7, only 51 thousandths of a second faster than McCormack, so barely anything in it there, and he didn't even do a purple sector on that lap. He's just done his personal bests and just strung together a really consistent lap, so it seems like having the consistency over the 2.5 minutes roughly is what's the main important thing here, rather than being able to set purples. We've got Wilkinson in the number 99 machine jumping up 4 places as well into 14th position overall. That's Gideon Wilkinson from Beckenham, and just outside the top 10 at the moment, but that's great stuff from Winrow. And to be fair, that's the time that you want to get it done as well, isn't it, Adam? You want to do it as a bit of a surprise late on in the session so people don't have long to respond.
Absolutely, that's the ideal. We had speculated whether or not the progress would be stifled once they ended up in the Mazda traffic. I think that was true for a couple of laps, but I think they emerged out the other side of the Max 5 runners and have been able to string together quick laps once again. Interested to see now, as the checkered flag just comes out, whether anyone can improve on Winrow's time in the last flying laps.
We've got the number 86 MX-5 just crossing the line now, currently 36th. No improvement there from Greenhill. He stays where he is. We've got the two of the MX-5 Mark IVs across the line, the number 45 and the number 4 in what look like factory paint jobs. That is Shipley and Loversage. Loversage ends the session highest at the moment, but Hicks needs to cross the line yet. We've got a few of the Caterhams up there. Number 2 is one of them, which is Elwood. And he goes up a few spots into 3rd place, 2:26.097 after a purple sector on that lap, but no personal bests anywhere else. So that is the fastest sector we've seen all session. There's a couple of them across the line making contact as they cover the final few meters there, so really vying for position. A lot of times coming in on the board. Nobody really jumping up drastically, though, by the look of it. Looks like at this moment in time, no one's actually improving. There's just more and more checkered flags turning up on here, and they're not actually climbing up the order. So seems like a pretty anticlimactic end to the session for some of them. But like we said before, it's all about getting the time in. The RX-8 roars its way across the line with its rotary engine. That is Ben Taylor in the D class. He will finish the session 41st overall on a 2 minutes 45. But we've only got a handful more cars to go by the look of it here, Adam. But still, plenty to look at in this, much like we'll have in the headline event. But these things obviously moving at a bit more potent pace around here, so maybe we'll have to be really on our toes.
Absolutely, a great session. One thing we will have to keep track of is I think the entry list was published with the intention of the Max 5s running separately from the others, so we do have some changes to the numbers, such as the triple of the 11 Mazda becoming the 111, courtesy of the shared grid. The fastest of the Mazdas, incidentally, was Loversage, number 4, one of the immaculately turned out Mark 4s that you highlighted there, Chaz, and he was the quickest of them, 2:37.241, just over 100th of a second clear of the number 37 of Hicks. So that tells you how close it will be among the Max 5s. There aren't too many of the Mazdas here this weekend, but I still think there's going to be plenty of dicing among them.
Yeah, plenty to look at with those guys. Always entertaining. I'm just having another look because we've still got a few cars to complete their laps, although...
Yeah, but I have really important news from the pit lane.
Let's go.
Sunshine.
Yes.
We have sunshine.
Indeed. Get the sun cream out, Alan.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely lovely stuff.
The forecast is really good.
Yes, yeah, it's supposed to be absolutely fine for the weekend, really. We've got a good one on our hands, and normally with the bank holiday weekend, it should leather it down in typical British fashion, but we're not getting that, so you don't need to get your brolly out and take up an extra hand with this. Oh God, yeah. I'm bored of it now.
Yeah, I think we all are. So the forecast for the rest of the week is really good, and temperatures that are much more like the temperatures we should be having at this time of year, and certainly the weather forecast for this weekend, which is a relief for everybody, because it does become just such a trial for teams when the weather is testing, and this becomes a much more enjoyable event all round, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever considered a job as a weatherman, by the way, Alan? Because you sound like the only weatherman I could actually trust and believe when he tells me that it's going to be nice weather.
Well, I'm speaking first hand, you see, so I'm not trying to predict things.
That's very true.
I'm just looking at the sky and thinking, oh, that's a nice day.
Might be less effective in front of a green screen.
Yeah, you're quite right. I don't really quite know how they always seem to put their hand in the right place. It's very clever. It's quite a skill.
Yeah, I have many responses to that, none of which are broadcastable. Right then, Winrow takes the pole position then in the Caterhams there, number 46. McCormack in second place in the 125 machine. Elwood in third in the number 2, only 3/10 off the top spot. Kramer ends the session in fourth place in the 121, ahead of the number 55 car, which of course was driven by Benjamin Lopez Appleton. Behind him is the 114 of David Yates, with Tim Child in the 129 machine in 7th. Following him, the 113 of Andrew Perry, ahead of De Lusignan in the 102. And then car 3, with Jim Earlham at the wheel, finishes in 10th place, 1.8 seconds off the top spot. Really, really good spread there, though, in that one, Adam. And, 5 seconds covering the top 30, that's still very close here, considering that slipstream makes such a difference on just one qualifying lap.
Oh, that's extremely close. And, looking at that top 10 that you've just read out there, Chaz, they're split by 1.8 seconds. And I think once that shakes out into a race later on, I think anyone in that top 10, and feasibly quite a way down as well, could find themselves certainly in contention for a top 5 finish. Once you have that unanimous tow around the circuit of all of these Caterhams in one big group, it's going to make for unpredictable racing, which is why I think there isn't a commentator in the country that will tell you that they don't enjoy commentating on a Caterham race. It's going to be quite the treat for us once they come back out onto the circuit for their first race a little later on.
Yeah, definitely. They've certainly got slipstreaming down to a T in these things. And to be honest, I got the chance to commentate on these at Thruxton last year in the Caterham Academy. And as you can imagine around there, it was absolutely bonkers. There was a good few occasions where they were 4, sometimes 5 wide coming into the final chicane. Caterham drivers are not scared. That's the simple way of putting it. So we move on from that then as the cars have just finished making their way round and into the pits. And in just a few minutes or so we'll get our next qualifying session underway. More Caterhams out there, which will be the Sigmax and Sigma 135 cars. these opening laps. I just had to quickly run down to the car then for a moment, because with Alan mentioning the wonderful sunshine coming out and me having the sudden realisation that it was burning my arm through the window, all I could see in my head was the searing image of the chocolate bar I bought this morning in my on my passenger seat in my car, which was going to melt, and it's more like a hot chocolate drink at the moment, I must admit. But we have an umpteen amount of Sigma 135s out there. In terms of the Sigmax cars out there, looks like we have, what, 20, just less than 20? Or is my maths off?
Sorry, repeat that?
In the Sigmax cars, we have, what, 18, 19, is it?
I don't think you're a million miles off that. Yes, I'd have to go and do the same maths that you've just done.
Yeah, I used to be able to just see a list of things and pick the numbers, but again, the quality of my printer has let me down for this weekend. I really must buy a new one, so I'm going to get a baseball bat. But either way, so much to look at here, and one thing that I think we may get a little bit more of in this race, or in at least this field, is a bit more of a mix between potentially the 135s and the Sig Maxes. What do you reckon?
I think on the face of it, the Sig Maxes should be maybe 3 or 4 seconds clear. There should be a little bit of real estate at the end of the session between the Sig Maxes and the Sigma 135s, but that might be more of a scientific approach to that question. Of course, science and reality are often not quite the same thing, so we'll see how it shakes out across the session. Certainly the Sigmax sharp end will be significantly quicker than the 135s once we get them properly underway. They're just filing in through the end of the outlap now, and already look at that, 2:29.142 even on the outlap, significantly quicker. Well, not significantly quicker than what we saw in terms of pole position in the last session, but already knocking on the door of what would have been top 10 pace in a 150. These Sigmax cars are a nice little step up in all regards, and we'll see some of the quickest times outside of the sports prototypes, of course, in this session. Oh, we've got a bit of a crossing wires moment there between several of the cars. One spun, and 3 others ended up on the grass. Thankfully, all are undamaged in that incident, but Maggots Beckett's catching out some more drivers in the early going on the first of the flying laps, and just pushing the envelope a fraction too far by the looks of it, and compromising several other people's laps as a result.
Yeah, it's quite obvious when they've been going past me that, you know, there is a difference in not just pace, but, you know, overall confidence in the car, how much of a run you can get out of the final corner down here, and that is really quite the bottleneck on a lap, isn't it? If you've got somebody, say there's 2 of you that are quicker than one of the other drivers in front, you know, if you're the second of those 2 quick guys, you've got to be able to sort of estimate what the faster guy in front of you is going to do. Is he going to wait for the slower car? Is he going to try and just take a chance and go around him? And if he brakes a lot harder than you expect and slows up quite a bit, you've got to then react, worry about people behind you. There's a big domino effect and things like that, isn't there?
Absolutely. So that is again the key factor is being at the right place at the right time. I think we saw that in the last session. Lots of purple sectors attributed to drivers who weren't getting purple lap times, and it is just a matter of rolling the dice with some good fortune in terms of whom you end up behind and what direction their car is facing at certain corners. We shouldn't see it really, on reflection, we shouldn't see that much difference between the Sigmax and the 150s. The Sig Max cars are effectively slightly older versions of the Sigma 150s in terms of performance, so there's not really that much between them in terms of outright performance. In fact, these cars being slightly older, they may even be a little bit slower than the 150s. We'll have to wait and see on that regard. So sorry, throwing a duff statement there a few minutes ago from myself, but yeah, the Sigmax cars nonetheless a step up certainly from the 135s, and we'll see how they compare. We've had the first flying laps just starting to file through, and Griffiths there, the 16, currently at the top of the sheet, 2:28.319. But I hazard a guess that the second flying lap, once the tyres are fully up to temp and everyone's eye is fully calibrated to the morning here at Silverstone, I think we'll see them at least dip into the 2:27s and perhaps the 2:26s.
Yeah, there's big potential there in terms of lap time, so we'll just have to keep our eye on it. I was just looking down the 135 order there just to see the difference, and obviously as they still get their eye in, there is quite a mix between the two classes at the moment. And I imagine that when you are racing in these things, there's no real, I'm not sure what the distinction is between the two of them visually. You know, they've not got different number boards or anything, have they really? So if you are in one of the, say the slower class cars, say we're in one of the 135s, and you've got Sigmax drivers fighting around you, it's a case of, in terms of the championship, do you just let them go? You know, do you fight them? Do you actually have a battle with them? Because you never know who it could be, I suppose, when it's in the moment there and then.
I think it's certainly a trickier position for a slower Sigmax driver. I think they're inclined to stick their elbows out and have a fun race, but you don't want to compromise the front-running 135s. And I somehow doubt that someone fighting for the 135 championship would particularly want to fight the back end of the Sigmax pack either. So it is a matter of a certain amount of balance there in that scenario you mentioned between the classes.
We've got the usual wonderful pretty liveries out there as well on these things. There's so many different bright colours and combos on these cars. That's one of the best things about Caterham racing, with the Caterham Academy that I was covering last time out. You know, everybody you often get that thing in Caterham racing and with cars with sort of exposed roll cages on top of them. Every driver in the paddock seems to think that he's the only one that's thought, I'm going to paint it fluorescent yellow.
Yes.
When the entire grid turns up with them. Although I've not seen too many of them here. One going past now, the number 79, has got quite the bright sort of what you would call a bonnet on these cars. The engine cover on the front fluoro yellow, and so is the roll cage. But the rest of the car is black, so there's quite a contrast to it. Other than that, I don't see too many fluorescent yellow roll cages. There's one with bright orange, which is the number 73 car.
There's quite a few running somewhere between orange and red, I'll say that much. 2:27.684, currently the fastest time on the board on the second flying lap. So that's the number 28, that is Harry Senior. And a 2:27.684, just over a tenth and a half quicker than the 25 driver. That's Stephen Clark, but Clark looks like he's setting some good pace. He had set a purple sector. That's now been taken away from him, from another driver who we can expect to see good things from. That's the number 82. That's Matthew Willoughby, a 44.7. If he can retain that kind of speed across the next two sectors, I think we'll find him well into the front row of the grid.
Yeah, indeed. Some fantastic pace from him at the moment. Really flying. But that's the thing again, we've seen drivers put in some really good sector times and then not follow that consistency for the entire lap. So it's how they convert that overall, because I mean, we saw a pole position time earlier in the previous session where they'd done personal bests in each sector, but they hadn't done purple in any sector. So, you know, they still had people that, when it came down to each sector, they were still quicker than them.
It's gone significantly as well since the start of the session. It's now probably warm for the first time in 2021. I've put my sunglasses on.
Oh yeah.
And it really is getting quite warm. Taking the jumper off.
I've just put my sunglasses on as well, actually.
Yeah,
but with this headset on, I can't actually squeeze it between the headset and my ears.
Look, sunshine comes out, people smile.
Oh, indeed.
Wonderful.
So Willoughby there, 2:29.480 was the resulting lap from that purple first sector. Lost it all really in the middle sector, lost about a second on some of the quicker times we've seen through sector 2. Still put himself up the order a little bit, but actually, there we go, I'll eat my words, 2:28.055 now for Willoughby across the line, and the 82 puts him up to third place. Still though, going to rue, I think, that middle sector, because look at that 31.105 in the middle sector relative to a 30.330 for Clark in the 25. So 7 tenths, 8 tenths gone just in the middle sector.
Yeah, it must be painful to see that on the board at the end of the session as well. You know, if you see the difference,
Yeah.
you think, oh, flipping heck, if he would have at least been maybe 2 tenths slower than his rival through there, then that would have been, what, another half a second maybe quicker? Well, maybe, no, about 3 tenths, maybe a bit more faster over the whole lap. It's just little differences like that, but again, just comes down to the consistency. Now, Senior, who is already fastest at the moment, has done the fastest Sector 1 on this current lap, and he's done a 30.5 in the middle sector, which is only 3 tenths off the fastest time through there at the moment. So we'll have to keep an eye on when he comes across the line.
Yeah, he's just heading down the Wellington Straight now, and actually he's towing another car. I didn't catch the number, I must admit, of the car that's behind, but there could be a couple of improvements. Both drivers looking fairly quick through the immediate lens of my commentary position. Just coming towards you now, Chaz.
I will keep my eye out, not my lazy eye, the good one, but we will soon see how they come across the line. We've got number 13 coming through. I believe this is them coming into view now, the 28 and the 24, which is Winrow, currently 4th fastest, and Senior does go even quicker, a 2:27.2. So that first sector really did him wonders there. Winrow does not improve though. He's still in 4th place. He's done a 2:28.2 as his fastest time, but it was a 28.9 last time round. So that slipstream clearly not helping him. The 98 and 33 crossing the line there, right together as well. And there you go, the 98 Gale goes up into 8th position, and the 33 goes up, that's Cordy, up into 15th. Got a big bunch of them flying across the line now. That's Bettinson, who goes up 2 places, up into 11th. A few of the others go through, no such improvements it seems at the moment. The 44 and 31 are side by side across the line here in front of me. That was Skillicorn, who has gone up into 20th place. The 91 of Cahill has jumped 7 places. Clark in the number 10 has gone up 6 to 27th place. So there's plenty of movement in and around the edges of the top 20 at the moment, Adam, but those top spots seeming quite secure at the moment, especially after Senior goes even quicker.
Yes, I'm still sat there watching the split times for Willoughby in particular, because if he had successfully lowered the bar to the extent that it looked like he was going to just a few moments ago, he would have at least got into 2nd place. This current lap that he's on doesn't look so spectacular. I think there will still be some late changes in the order potentially in this next 5 minutes and 15 seconds that we have remaining. But it is going to be. I think we have an idea of who's going to be in the top 5, in the top 6. I think the question is, what order will they be in?
Yeah.
I think more so than who will it be at this stage. Correct.
Yeah, we've got 1st to 6th, and then 7th is everybody else, basically, at the moment. Shaw is fastest in the 135s, ahead of Power. That is the number 86 machine, ahead of the number 70. So Simon Shaw ahead of Tom Power, and then the next car is only 2 positions back. The number 50 of James McCall, and then they're sort of dotted, almost alternating with the Sigmax cars after that for every position going down the order. And then suddenly, as soon as you get outside the top 30, other than the number 8 car of Peter Marsh, it is all 135s after that. So that's where the main split is in the top 30. But great to see the 135 drivers still on pace with the Sigmax guys.
Yes, absolutely. Talking about the gap between the 2 categories earlier, and I was getting my Caterham wires completely crossed as to which spec of car the Sigmax actually was. So I have to apologise to the 135 drivers for that. They're certainly able to be somewhere in the same rough ballpark, and we'll see how far the 135s can get into the top 20 or so. We've already got, as we said, Shaw there 13th overall, first of the 135s, and they could well challenge for an overall top 10 as well come the race proper. The 82 of Willoughby has improved, still in 4th place, but a 2:27.738. So some upward trajectory for him. We've got the top 5 cars now covered by 0.6 of a second, so there's a bit of a line, or a line in the sand appearing between that top 5, all within 0.6, and then you have to go back 7/10 to 6th place Sturgis. So it looks like we've got a front 5 forming. We'll have to see whether that's the case in the race as well, whether these drivers can do that kind of pace consistently and have the battle to the lead to themselves.
What's the most scary thing that you can do in a public place these days?
Not wear a mask?
Broadcastable or
No,
not?
worse than that. Well, so there's a bit of a story behind this. So when the sunshine comes out, I have and always have had a kind of an allergic reaction in that when the sun comes out I sneeze.
Yes.
And in the current climate, I was just walking along at the back of the garages, and I sneezed repetitively to the horrific look of a poor lady that sort of heard me coming and then dived into a garage as if I was some kind of terrible infection bringer. So I put sunglasses on so that that will no longer be an issue. But,
no, I completely understand that, because my stepdad gets exactly the same. You know, we often we have a timeshare out in Spain that we often go to, and whenever we're out there, it's just him sneezing all week. It's just constant.
So for me, it's only the initial thing. I remember some years ago, I was lucky enough to work on A1GP, and we went to the most phenomenal places in the world, including New Zealand.
Heck!
From the minute I got off the plane, it was sort of endless sneezing. It's just an initial reaction, and then it goes off. It's weird, but it's a reaction that quite a few people have. We've got one car in pit lane at the moment, the number 73 car, and I'm just going to question what the problem with the car is, and whether is it a cooling problem, because the coolant seems to be bubbling a bit in the overflow tank.
We've just had a spin for the 34 as well while that's going on. He's just been at Luffield. I just had the massive train of cars that I mentioned before, Adam, is actually 22 cars long now as they come through. I counted them just while Alan was summarising the coolant there. So there's 22 of them I can see.
That's quite something, certainly. The 25 car at the top of the order, a 226.832. That bar has just been lowered by Clark in the 25, stays top and improves his lap time, now 0.3 clear of everyone. Of course, the first one to go sub 2:27. Before he set that improvement, we actually saw Harry Senior in the 28 go within just a couple of thousandths or a couple of hundredths of a second of Clark with his 2:27.206, but he's now going to have to find a bit more speed to trouble the driver of the number 25 there.
It's not good news for Dan Clayton, because I think he's getting himself out of the car. It's right.
Checkered flag's just come out as well, to be fair, so it's probably just about the right time, I'd say. It's just the car called it quits a bit early, maybe.
They need to work out what the problem is, and so he's just going to get out. He's not going to get out of the car now because the session's at the end, so he'll be off to the paddock, hopefully, to resolve what the problem is with this car as the bodywork goes back on the car. Just putting the nose cone on. I'll see if I can get a quick word with Dan. What seems to be the trouble, Dan?
I think that the fan belt has come off, and don't know how, but got a lot of coolant all over the screen, all over me, and so I had to retire.
It hasn't done damage, has it? I asked tentatively.
So CTS are a brilliant team, so they'll get it sorted, I'm sure.
Get it resolved. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much indeed. There we go.
Cracking stuff.
73 car.
Well, that's the thing you love from drivers, isn't it? You know, they've got such faith in their team. You know, they'll know that there is a problem, but they know that they will get it sorted very, very quickly. Now we've got a stream of traffic coming across the line here. Multiple cars improving. We've got personal bests for second and third from Senior and Willoughby. Burtonshaw as well doing a personal best. Power and Racing also doing that. Bettington is only 7 thousandths off Racing ahead actually for 13th and 14th, but there's just a never-ending stream of these things coming through. We've got a few of them pushing hard on the exit of Luffield, running slightly wide, kicking the dust up as well. We've got a trio of them across the line now, which is the 81, the 133 and the 55. The 133 of Errol is further down the order in 27th. Looks like he didn't improve on his time there, but another very, very busy session flies by in the blink of an eye, Adam. I say that, and there's still another 15 in my sight coming around Luffield.
Absolutely, the qualifying sessions as a whole have flown by. Next out on track, I believe we have our first race of the day for the sports prototypes. So we're already into the real meat of the day in fairly short order. The qualifying sessions have been a lot of fun.
A grid has been issued now for the 24-hour race. So C1's the
awesome.
grid. So just in the last 10 minutes or so being issued.
Brilliant. Well, I will jump on TSL and get that printed off as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. But fantastic stuff so far this morning from all these guys. And to be fair, the only red flag we've had was for the Ligier breaking down. The standards driving so far have just been brilliant. There's been the odd moment here and there, but let's face it, it's Silverstone. It's not an easy circuit to get around by any stretch of the imagination. So I'd say we've had a very nice, clean morning from all these drivers, and we're quite ahead of schedule as well. The session was due to start at 20 to 12 and finish at 12 o'clock, but we're about 10 minutes ahead at the moment. So as Adam said, we may get quite a long lunch break, which would, let's face it, do for anybody. Anyone likes a long lunch, don't they?
Well, it's always the aim of race control to push things on as quickly as they possibly can. Having time in hand is a great thing to have on a busy race meeting. And also when you've got a particularly time-critical start of a race, if you're running a 24-hour race, very important that it starts on time, because obviously it pushes back the end time if it were to start a little late. So that's good work by all the officials and teams all working together and making sure that we are ahead of schedule as the cars come into pit lane, down to the end of pit lane and Parc Ferme, and then onwards towards the paddock that houses the Caterhams, of which there are so many this weekend. And I don't know whether this is going to bring forward the start time of our prototype race.
I'd imagine they probably would, because then they'd just extend the lunch break, wouldn't they, just to
I think so.
Make sure, because like you say, having time in hand is great, and if they can sort of take that over, they may as well add that 10 minutes rather than between the two races where you can't really do anything with the time. They may as well bang it on the lunch break.
Particularly useful for me this weekend, because I have two separate race reports to hand in by 6 a.m. Monday for this weekend as well. So the more time I have to go and interview some people, the better.
Yeah, that's perfectly understandable, really. Perfectly understandable. And we just watch now that, honestly, I can still see, it's honestly like someone's put some cup links between all these Caterhams. They are just all one behind another on their way into the pits. They're all going very, very slowly now. There's a bit of a traffic jam. It's like the M25 that we were talking about this morning, Alan. There's a big train of them on the way into the pits at very slow speed, but they have time to, take their time on the way in. But just rounding up the session, then we'll give you the top 10. Number 25 being driven by Mr. Clark takes the honours in that one with a 2:26.510, almost half a second faster than the 28 of Harry Senior, with 82 just behind Matthew Willoughby in the third spot. We then have the number 16 with Simon Griffiths at the wheel in fourth place, ahead of the number 24 car of Ben Winrow. Number 72, Glenn Burtonshaw, is sixth, ahead of the number 9 of Neil Sturgis. Just behind him in eighth place on the fourth row of the grid will be Kevin Barrett in the number 1 car. Then it's the number 36th in ninth place, which is Luke Chauru. Sorry if I've got that wrong, Luke. Then 10th place, rounding out the top 10 of course, is the number 98 of Jason Gale. Just behind him actually, just to extend that slightly, you've got the first two of the 135 class cars, the number 50 machine of James McCall, and only 16 thousandths of a second back is the number 70 of Tom Power. They'll start together on the 6th row of the grid, so long as nothing changes between now and then for those guys. We still have a number of Caterhams actually still out on track. I think one of them is on its way through the, as Adam called it, the not quite new section.
It still feels new to me.
It does, yeah. No, I agree. You know, I mean, I can see the wing on the CCTV camera here, and it looks absolutely stunning.
Yes, and then I think, yeah, it's new. And then I think back to what I was doing when they first held a race on this full length, what is now the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, back in 2010, and I realised actually no, it was quite a long time ago.
Yes, indeed, it is. Honestly, like forever since it's been done. But you know, it just shows you how they've done such a good job with it. You know, it still feels new because of how modern it still looks umpteen years on. You know, it's a hell of a building.
Yes, it strikes me. I mean, Silverstone. I mean, one look at the likes of the Racing Circuits Info website will tell you how many incarnations, how many adjustments were made to the layout throughout the 20th century. And I think that now, some 10 years into the Arena GP loop, as it was coined at the time, I think we can safely say that I think the definitive framework for where the track is going to go is there. I can't see them starting from scratch or rebuilding anything significant in terms of the circuit layout anytime soon. The circuit is in very good form, very good condition, and yeah, I think they've got it right.
I'm still a bit gutted that we don't have Bridge Corner anymore, though.
Yes, that is the one downside. For a little while, the two were running as parallel. I think at the end of 2010,
yes,
they actually had the Burkett 6 hour on the Bridge GP loop, but I think that was the last race that we've seen there, and sadly will probably remain at least for the foreseeable. Would be amazing to see it maybe back in use for the Silverstone Classic or something of that nature.
Be cool.
But that would be of course a fantasy, at least in the short to mid term.
I agree. Bridge was something very special. I remember watching the tail end of Gerhard Berger in a Ferrari. In qualifying going through Bridge, and it was absolutely spectacular.
And the days of, you know, even the super touring days in the mid-90s, you know, watching
talking language.
Yes.
People side by side through there, you know, the likes of Frank Beeler, used to have Gabriele Tarquini, and when I was young I always had the VHS of the 2000 season. Obviously not the most glistening season of British Touring Car Championship, but still
nice.
Very entertaining cars. You know, those Mondeos at the time were the peak of super touring cars. They were just unbelievable. And that season, you know, there was every single lap, even in the night races that they used to do, you know, they're side by side through there, only differentiated by the different coloured aerials on top of the cars. And
yeah, it's true.
Oh, it was just magical.
3-car team as well.
Yes, there was. Yeah, I remember. It's really sad that I remembered it, but I think James Thompson's Honda had a blue aerial. Tarquini's had a flashing red orb on the top of it, and Christensen's was fully red.
You're right.
Guess what, guys? You've out-anorak me for the day.
Fantastic.
We're on to the chosen specialist subject of BTCC, this makes sense.
I was going to say, I don't think I can really rival you for that one, Alan. That's your arena.
But for me, they're very much memories. I did an interview a couple of years ago ahead of the Silverstone Classic, at the Silverstone Classic Media Day, a proper
we lost you for a second there.
A proper sit-down interview with Tom Christensen. And if you bear in mind, since he was in the BTCC, how much he has achieved in global motorsport since then, being the most winning driver of the Le Mans 24-hour race, to name but just one achievement in his career. I think I hit him with a slightly curved ball when I asked the first question. I said, we're here at Silverstone, Tom, and I have a great memory of you being particularly good here at Silverstone in the final night race that we had here
Yes.
at Silverstone, and he immediately his face lit up, and it's a great part of his history and a great part of his memory. It was right at the end of the season, and all of a sudden things just sort of started coming right for him that year.
Yeah. The Honda was very good around here because it had
was
so
superb.
much
Yeah,
oomph.
it was superb.
It was good at Alton Park as well. He actually famously won the ridiculously long feature race that they used to run at Alton Park there. It was almost an hour longer, if I remember rightly. And
With the pit stops.
Yeah. They for some reason had a much longer feature race at Alton Park, where it was like 44 laps of the Alton Park Island circuit, which is just mental. And he actually won it while spewing oil everywhere for the last 3 laps. It was a complete smokescreen, a 007 smokescreen, as Charlie Cox called it at the time. And I must say, and just to say this live on air, Alan, I must admit, I often listen back to Tin Top Tuesday where you interviewed Charlie Cox, because it's hilarious.
Oh, really?
What a guy!
So that was last year, wasn't it?
Yes.
When we were in sort of lockdown, and I got in touch with Charlie. I said, "Would you be up for this?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely, I would." Yeah.
It's all the inland revenue jokes that I absolutely love.
Yeah, I did say to him at the end of it, "Shall I leave these in?" Absolutely, you leave them in.
He's an absolute star.
He's very funny. He's a really nice guy as well.
Some recommended viewing as well while we reminisce on that general era of racing and the Silverstone Bridge Grand Prix. You're going to have to forgive me for not remembering if it was 98 or 99, but British GT actually had, I think, the immediate post-British Grand Prix race slot, as in the British GTs went out directly after the Grand Prix itself. I think it was 98. And none other than Matt Neal was actually in a Porsche 911 GT1 car in amongst a very sizable field of cars that day.
Would be about right, yeah.
And it was drying, having been almost monsoonish earlier in the day, and watching those 600 plus horsepower late stage GT1 cars of the 90s go around Silverstone's Bridge GP circuit in full battle royale sprint race mode was something to behold. One for the archive if you can access it.
Now I must unfortunately divert, because we actually have a race about to begin away from the trip down memory lane, boys. But we have the grid now for the Sports Prototype Cup, which is their first race of the day. Their second race is scheduled to be at 2:50 this afternoon, but it's Bonamy Grimes on pole position in the wonderful number 16 De Queen LMP3 car. He's alongside the number 74 of James Abbott, the Revolution A1 USA spec car, which I believe, Adam, 420 brake horsepower, was it you said, in comparison to the 380?
The US spec one, yes, is for about 420, yeah.
Awesome stuff. Then we have Michael Genvy on row 2 in the number 35 car, Genvy Dynamics Gun TS6. Graham Charman alongside him in the number 5 Juno. And then on row 3 we have Sir Chris Hoy in the number 70 car, alongside Simon Evans in the number 7 Ligier JSP 320. You'll certainly hear that car before you see it. Stephen Lake starts 7th in the number 6 machine, alongside Bradley Ellis's number 20 Revolution A1. Then we have Richard Wells in the number 80, alongside Chris Short in the 55. He rounds out your top 10. Richard Chamberlain is 15th he's 11th in the 15, ahead of Jason Rishover's number 23 car. On row 7 of the grid we have number 44 Matt Brooks alongside Manhal Alas in the number 71 Revolution A1, and at the back of the grid in the MCR S2 from the Sports 2000 Championships, it is Andy Chittenden in the 148 machine, the bright blue car.
Do have to sadly say that Simon Evans is not there. We have 15 on the grid, but only 14 came past my commentary position. So
I did the sensible thing and just looked out the window and realised it wasn't there. Sorry.
Yes,
rather than looking at the sheet of paper.
No, that's a pitfall that happens to us all. So that does sadly mean we're down to just the one LMP3 car, that being the Grimes Molam Duquin chassis. There was meant to be a couple of them as well, but there's just the one out there by my count, unfortunately. But still a great mix of prototypes out there on circuit, headed up, of course, by the Revolution A1 cars, the single make, the main element of the Sports Prototype Cup. and I think this is going to make for some compelling motor racing, some very different philosophies as to what makes sports prototype racing cars on display out there for our first race before the lunch break.
Yeah, definitely. And just to highlight as well, the MCRS2 at the back of the field, one thing that I still don't get over with those cars is actually how long the wheelbase is compared to how small the wheels are. I think they run, I must admit, I think they're 13, maybe even 12-inch wheels. On
free rubber, I think.
Yeah, they're very, very small wheels, but the cars themselves are very planted. You know, they've got a lot of real estate on them, as most of these cars do. You know, prototypes are all about closed wheel, but still very complex aerodynamics and really channeling the air down the car and sucking the car to the road. We've got some beautiful machinery out there, but it's great to see the radicals mixing in there as well, isn't it? There's a couple of SR3s out there. Of course, you've got the Juno as well, of Graham Charman in the mid-pack. Well, I'll say in the mid-pack, 4th place on the grid. So there's a bit of everything here. It's not just like they've got the Revolutions and then the LMP3 at the front.
Absolutely, there's going to be all manner of shapes and sizes nipping at the heels of the Duquin D08, the former Norma M30. With the second generation of LMP3 came a rebrand for that car, and the thunderous 5.5 litre V8 at the mid-rear of that car is certainly an auditory treat. As I said, just the one LMP3 from the 3 on the entry list and the 2 we saw in qualifying, but with a driver of the calibre of Phil Abbott starting in the vicinity, as well as Michael Genvy, who is an ace pretty much everywhere he goes in his Gun TS6. I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry, even as qualifying suggested.
Yeah, I think we have to wait and see. Half an hour race, so plenty of time for things to change, even once the race gets underway. I believe we're going for a rolling start as well, 2x2 here. So we've got the US spec Revolution A1 on the front row of the grid. They're just coming round Luffield now, so the pace car is now just turning off to make its way into the pits. The field haven't really hung back too far there, but we've got all shapes and sizes of all colours ready for a start. They're creeping up to the line now. Still holding, they're still holding is the number 16 machine. The lights are on. And they're out, and the first race of the day here at Silverstone gets underway. We've got Revolutions 3 wide near the back of the pack already, but it is the Ligier that leads them into Copse. There's a little bit of argy-bargy further back with some of the Revolutions. 2 of them making contact as they come down to you, Adam.
Yes, it is the LMP3 Duquin in the lead of the race, but on the attack is the number 35 through into second place they go, so that puts Abbott down to 3rd place in the first of the Revolutions. That is an open class Revolution rather than running in the Revolution class proper. Everyone through Maggots and Beckett's cleanly, and it is the Grimes Molam car driven by Bonamy Grimes for the time being that leads the way as they head down towards the back end of the circuit. Can just about still see them, and the challenge is coming. Genvy in the 35 is actually right on the heels of Bonamy Grimes as they head back kind of out of my view now. There is, I think, a little bit of smoke, maybe someone locked up heading towards pit entry there at the wing, coming back into my line of sight now for the first time, and we'll see just how close Genvy is to the back of Bonamy Grimes. Grimes has just managed to open up a few car lengths now, but the top 3 breaking away. The little Gun TS6 looking rather undersized relative to Abbott's Revolution, and practically minuscule next to the full-blown LMP3 Duquin chassis. The 16 car it is that leads. I'm sure you can hear it through my microphone there. There goes the 5.5 litre V8 as they come back into your line of sight, Chaz.
Yeah, down they go into Brooklands now. Looks so planted on the way in, and you are right though, the gun does look tiny in comparison, but so nimble. The car's just behind as well, the Revolution, very close to the back. But actually, I tell you one thing, Genvy's got an unbelievable run out the final corner, and he's actually staying with the LMP3 car as they cross the line. There was only a tiny bit between the 2 of them. I'm just waiting for the timing to tip over. It doesn't seem to have picked them up yet for some reason, but the rest of the field all very much stuck together as they go through. Chittenden's still at the back, but he's not really dropped off by too much. There we go, it does tick over now. It was only 0.4 of a second across the line.
Absolutely, that's great to see. Also up into 4th place overall there was Ellis in the number 20, so that's the first of the Revolution entries, and he's just ahead of Charman in the 5, so he's got not only a good couple of seconds between himself and the rest of the Revolution pack, but he's also got a car between them as well, so that's a good way to start on the first lap there. Some 4 seconds practically clear of the rest of the Revolution class, number 20 of Ellis.
Yeah, doing a smashing job early on, and that's the thing as well, when you've got a longer race like this, kind of in the opposite way to what we mentioned before in qualifying, where you want to sort of put your intentions out there and give people no time to respond. You want to just try and break away early while the field is close together, because if anybody is fighting behind you, you can gain any advantage possible at that point, then you'll be absolutely winning. Now, Simon Evans in the number 7 obviously doesn't take to the race, but I've just seen, just trying to figure out who it is a little bit further down in the order. I think it might be Chamberlain in the number 15 machine, the red car, the CTR Developments car. He's right in the thick of it at the moment. He only gained 1 place on that opening lap, so Chris Hoy dropped 3 down to 8th place. So it's not really gone well for him so far, but Alos moving up 6 spots, so he's really flying early on. Be interesting to see how he holds on to it, but the leaders come back into view now out of Luffield, and it's Grimes just ahead of Genvy. I'd argue that the gap is even smaller than it was last time. It was 4:09. See what it is this time as they cross the line. 3rd place still the way of Abbott. It's only a bit bigger actually, the gap is 423 thousandths of a second. And then we've got the number 5 car of Charman right behind Ellis. They're side by side going into Cops. He chucks it down the inspired spit of flame and gets through. So Graham Charman in that Juno really flying now, as well as the rest of the Revolutions come around Cops towards you, Abbott.
Yes, absolutely. The leading pack has already come flying past. A move meanwhile for 4th overall. That was the number 5 of Graham Charman making his way past the leading Revolution, the number 20 currently being driven of course by Bradley Ellis, although that car is shared with Andy Cummings. So down to 5th overall goes the leading Revolution, but still with a comfortable advantage over the rest of that field to the tune of almost 7 seconds. No such luxuries for Bon Grimes though. We mentioned that that battle between the top 2, Genvy there, right there in 2nd place. I think that he's maybe dialed the gun TS6 up to 11 for this race. Maybe just saved a bit, put a bit in the back pocket for quali, and now it's right up there in amongst it. And a word must be said as well for Phil Abbott in 3rd place. He is basically the man behind.
Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. We've lost the LMP3.
No, it's still running.
I've not seen it go past through. I think I may have missed it then.
Yes, it's just come past me.
Yeah, it has.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I think I was looking at the one of the white. There's another white car that looks very similar to the gun a bit further down. I think I may have caught them at the wrong time on the CCTV. Apologies, I thought it came through first, but now that gap has definitely opened up. That I can tell you that. I've got that bit right. Grimes is getting away from Genvy at this stage. Abbott isn't really out of the picture here. He's still holding on in 3rd position in the very, very quick US spec Revolution in 3rd place, but then Ellis, like Adam said a moment ago, quite a bit further back. Now it was Ellis that was a long way ahead of Charman that on that previous lap. Sorry, they've now swapped around obviously, so it was Charman that I'd picked up on, not the others. We've still got the number 15 machine of Chamberlain in the fight. He's just ahead of Alos this time, then Rishover, and then Hoy.
Yes, so Richard Chamberlain in his self-developed CTR 01, using it to good effect here. Nice to see. I think effectively half of the open field is about on par with the Revolutions, and it's creating some interesting battles at the fringe ends of the top 10. I must also slap myself into shape and apologise. It's James Abbott in the 74, not Phil Abbott. I'm mixing my Abbotts there. That's not a faux pas. But yeah, James, as I was just saying before, is essentially the man behind Revolution, or certainly one of the key men behind Revolution. So he knows
you don't put Russ Abbott in the car.
Yes,
we're very
that's
happy.
okay. But he is one of the key men behind Revolution, and so certainly he'll know the car well. But nonetheless, seeing it stay within, well, currently within 10 seconds of the LMP3, that would suggest that car is now running in that US spec up to 420 horsepower. I'd say that could go blow for blow now, potentially with GT3 cars at a national level, and they are talking about making that US spec available to Europe for 2022 as well. So it could effectively be a preview of the performance we see next year out of the Revolution A1s, and things certainly look positive if that is the case.
I still can't get over how loud that LMP3 car is as it goes past again. Grimes and Genvi now 2.1 seconds apart, but Genvi's car in itself is a noisy little thing. It's really got a sound to it. Abbott in third place just goes by. Then behind them we've got Charman, who is starting to just open that gap up slightly ahead of Ellis, the first of the Revolution cars. Round Luffield goes the number 55 machine as well, driven by Chris Shaw. Started 10th in this race, so up to 6th. Not a bad effort so far. He's got the 15 closing in on him there as well, Chamberlain. And then, still behind them is Rishover. Alos actually dropped down a few places on that lap by the look of it. There's 71. Maybe just the one spot. No, he's actually gone completely. Where has he gone? Oh, he's actually just spun it around at the last corner. Apologies, I looked up then to try and see if he was in the pack that's gone through. He's now put the car in the gravel. He's done a very big loop around, and I think he might be pulling over here. Although he's gone to the edge of the gravel trap near the wall to try and get some momentum. No, he is carrying on, but he's done a very, very long turn here. It looked like it had the turning circle of a small moon, but he's carrying on. I'm just going to check if there's any damage. No, it looks like just an innocent spin, to be fair. So he's continued.
So 2.1 seconds last time by between our top two of Grimes and Genvi, and I don't think that's quite what it is as they came out of my commentary position this time. They head down the Wellington Straight now, and naturally the Bonamy Grimes Nissan-powered LMP3 has disappeared off, so it might be back up to 2.1 by the time they get back to you. But certainly, I think through the second sector, Genvi can more than match the pace of Grimes.
Yeah, he's just come back into my view now as they go through Woodcote and across the line. Grimes goes through, Genvi goes with him. 2.3 seconds now, so it's there or thereabouts though, isn't it?
And
really?
I mean, you can see last lap, the fastest second sector is in the hands of Genvi at 24.6, and last time by in that middle sector, the Gun TS6 was actually 4/10 quicker than Bonamy Grimes in the LMP3 car. So the strengths and weaknesses starting to make themselves clear here out in circuit, but also across the lap, we should acknowledge that Bonamy Grimes certainly the quickest out there at the moment at 57.789. And the other thing to flag, if you weren't here watching earlier on, is that a 57.789 is not the full potential of that car, as he was in the 55s in qualifying earlier on in the Dequin.
Yes, indeed. He's certainly got the potential to be even quicker. And to be fair, I think Genvi's probably got that in the back of his mind. He's probably just thinking, right, when's he going to open the taps properly? But the thing is, you often see it, don't you, that in qualifying they do take that extra little risk just to get that track position, and then in the race they just manage it accordingly based on where they are and what progress they're making. So you won't see them potentially take as many risks when they're not in a direct battle, but they're racing drivers. They're unpredictable, aren't they?
Absolutely. Well, we heard from Bonamy Grimes a little earlier on with Alan, and he sounded like the happiest man on the circuit, or in the paddock in general, and we said that the sunshine makes people smile, and even if he's not driving the car up to full potential, I think he's probably having one of the best weekends of his season to date. Bon Grimes on a sunny day, Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and a clear track ahead of him. I think that's about as good as it gets of a Saturday afternoon.
I'd say so. He's just come past again. And now the gap is definitely opening up now. It was, what, 2.4 seconds last time round, 3.9 now, so he's really flying. Does a personal best middle sector, so that's the response he needs.
Yes.
Over Gen V, but the gap is getting bigger and bigger back to Abbott now, so he's just come across the line now, which will tick it over. 14.7 seconds off the car ahead, 18.6 off the top spot, so it's started to spread out for the rest of the top 5, but it's still anybody's guess really when it comes to the drivers just a bit further down, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. The battle for second place in Revolution and the battle for 5th place in Open is essentially on the same piece of real estate, but I don't think those two battles are as separate in the minds of the drivers as they were acknowledged by me just there. They're having a battle for overall position. Categories put on the back burner for that one, and great to see again such a mix of cars out there on circuit. Chamberlain looks like he's made up a place on that lap. He has indeed. So the 15 of Chamberlain up to 6th overall. He's got past the 55 of Short, and of course that's the second place car in the Revolution category. So Richard Chamberlain making his way up the order nicely.
Yeah, it's all about that progress in the race. I think one thing that drivers tend to look at is, where did I start and where am I going to finish? You know, you've got to compare it and see any movement or a break even in terms of position is good, but then again you have to consider how happy was said driver with their qualifying position. You know, were they pleased with where they started out, and are they pleased with where they end up? So we've got the race leader coming back past once again, then the number 16 car screaming its way past. I absolutely love that thing. We're not even at half race distance yet though, so plenty of time still for things to change. You never know, all it takes is one little failure, one little mistake, and any of these drivers can have what's a good race or a bad race. It can very fortunes just differ a lot in motorsport, don't they?
Yes, fortunes may vary.
Yes.
5.7 seconds the gap then last time across the line between Grimes and Genvy, and then 15 back to Abbott, as you said. James Abbott falling just a little way away from the top two. I think it is that mid pack there for about 6th down to 10th, 11th place, all sharing that same piece of real estate. Unfortunately, at the moment, they're all separated by 1 to 3 seconds, so it's not quite an on-track battle yet, but I think that before the end of the race, certainly the likes of Chris Hoy, who fell down the order a little in the early going, they're going to find their footing and maybe pick their way up through the top 10 before we see the checker.
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly drivers that can really turn their fortunes around. That's the thing. A lot of the time in these races, your fortunes are in your own hands. We've just had the number 44 across the line of Matt Brooks. He started 13th on the grid. He's up to 11th place at the moment, but some 1 minute 18 off the top spot. No real danger at the moment of being lapped by the LMP3, but I'd be very intrigued to see whether the number 16 car of Grimes actually laps anybody in this race, because while it is a long lap, he's obviously got a few seconds per lap over everyone else.
Well, he's just lapped Alos in the 71.
Oh, he has.
Who, of
He's
course,
just
had
come
the
into
spin,
view.
so yes.
Yeah, he's just come past him now, actually. I thought, oh, hang on, he's close to the back of him, but then it's like, no, Chaz, that's a red and yellow car, not a white one. So Grimes crosses the line again, and you've got to think, will the traffic have any effect? But with the pace difference, that's either a solid yes or a solid no, isn't it? Because it can have a massive difference in that the other car is slower and really holds him up somewhere, or it's that much slower that it's a breeze for him to get past. You never know which way that's going to go.
No, there's often some, I suppose, discourse as to how you should behave as the back marker, as the driver doing the lapping. You're meant to stay on your line, but some people dive out and away at the last possible minute, and that is when incidents happen. Thankfully, it looks like everyone that Bonamy Grimes has caught up to so far has been abiding nicely. He's just gone past Chittenden to put him a lap down on the approach, or just down the hanger straight under the bridge. So that's another driver who sees the back end of the LMP3. I must say, the Sports 2000 cars as excellent as they are, I imagine that thing with the sheer volume that comes out of the back of the LMP3, it must have shook for Mr. Chittenden as the 5.5 litre V8 came thundering past on the hangar straight there. That is a thunderous, sonorous machine if I've ever seen one. And as we mentioned, alluded to in qualifying, not many chances to see LMP3 cars out, not many chances to hear them in race conditions this season in the UK. So certainly we should be savouring the presence of Bonamy Grimes and Johnny Molan, and crossing our fingers that Evans gets the number 7, the Ligier JSP 320, out for race 2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, out of all places to see the LMP3 car, probably one of the best places to see it is from another car as it overtakes you, really. I imagine it looks and sounds fantastic there, but it's just incredible to see that pace difference as he comes past my commentary box once again. The Sports 2000 cars are similar to GT3 cars in terms of lap time under the right hands, and they're anywhere between 20,000 to 30,000 pounds. So bang for buck is the phrase that they often use in that championship, and as I do as well. It's just incredible to see how quick that LMP3 car really is. But again, the circuit may be playing to its advantages slightly. Gen V is now 9.2 seconds off the top spot, with Grimes still leading the way. Abbott is just crossing the line now in front of me in the number 74, and he is now 28 seconds off. So more traffic on the way for Grimes, it's safe to say.
Yes, I think that's going to be the purveying theme of the last third of the race for Grimes, is anticipating the direction for where the cars are going to go. Of course, Bon Grimes and Johnny Molan, Red River Sport, along, I think, in tandem with AF Corsa, running in the World Endurance Championship last season in the GTE AM category. So Bon Grimes, as of late, has been the guy being lapped, and he's now getting used to being at the very sharp end of the field and forging the path through the traffic for the first time in a little while, although that's not necessarily true, because they have had some goes in Brit car in the 458 Challenge car this season as well, but he is readjusting to being the one forging his way through rather than letting others by. And there goes the 16 again, back out onto the Wellington Straight for the 10th time in the race.
You can hear it.
Yes, you can, I'm sure.
It's fantastic.
This is the one grid, and it is largely because of that car, where I can't have a window open in this commentary box for fear of A, being deafened, and B, not being heard.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a bit of an imbalance between it and you at that stage. But still, it's been a really, really strong performance so far from the LMP3 car at the front of the pack. But I'd tell you what, you have to say, Gen V doing a really good job at wheeling around that number 35 machine. He's really flying at the moment, and it sounds great as well. That it sounds like a sort of higher revving old school touring car, the Gun TS6. Andy Chittenden just goes through now. Abbott seems to still be dropping away a little bit here, but that Revolution A1 US spec car has been very impressive so far, and you can visually see the difference in it actually going down the straight here past me. You can just see that it's going quicker. Usually you pick up on the body language of a car, and it's not always that the more lively the body language of the car is, the quicker the car. But in that case, it just genuinely looks like it's got so much squirt out of the last corner.
Well, I mean, 40 horsepower in a car that weight is probably, 60, 70, maybe even more in terms of brake horsepower per tonne that's now available to James Abbott. So I think it will definitely be noticeable, and I'm sure watching the performance, watching the lap times from James, the other Revolution A1 customers will be definitely lobbying for that to become the European spec in 22. That's not finalised, but it's certainly under consideration, and I think that's something that we'll see in 2022 if the customers have their way, because that's certainly, I mean, look at the gap on quali pace. It was 6 seconds between Abbott and Sir Chris Hoy, and Sir Chris Hoy is definitely not 6 seconds a lap slower than James Abbott around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, so they found a chunk of performance there, largely thanks to Michael Genvy and his work on the exhaust and the throttle maps, so throttle bodies I should say. So he's kind of causing his own problem in terms of the car that is lurking behind him in third place, admittedly some way down the road from the Genvi Gun TS6, but he's working closely with the Sports Prototype Cup organisers and Revolution themselves to improve the cars for future years.
And it's always good to see even a car such as that you'd see it and you'd think, flipping heck, that's been well developed. It's been purpose built for this. You'd often think that there can't be much more development from a car like that, but because of how sensitive the aero packages are on things like that, they can change very, very quickly. And speaking of the guns, in the Sports 2000 Championship, they run gun TS11s with this very interesting sort of open wheel arch front end, where they don't have the same sort of flat plane front like the MCR S2, but they have a lot more airflow between the wheel arches and the bodywork. And they've had a massive update package over the winter, and that car, which wasn't as competitive as the MCRs, which most people drive in the Sports 2000 Championships, the gun has just come alive this year, and Tom Stoughton has won 3 of the 4 races to start this year, I believe. Sorry, 2 of the first 4 races. Josh Law and Michael Gibbons, last year's champion, have won 1 race apiece as well at Brands. But yeah, that gun TS11 has been an absolute star, and it's great to see the older TS6 really having its neck wrung here by Genvi. Ellis has got ahead of Charman, by the way, on that previous lap. The number 20 getting ahead of the number 5 in the Revolutions, so he's still going ahead, although actually I think Charman hasn't come back through yet. I think that may be why.
So the number 5, yes, safety car is out.
Yeah.
I'm just re-scoping
he's on the apex. He's right on the apex, actually, of Club. I'll send you a picture of this, Adam, so you can see the exact thing, because it is parked on the curb. The rear wheels are off the ground, so it's beached. He's properly beached it, unfortunately, and cars are having to go around him, so he can't get going. That's an absolute nightmare. It doesn't look like the car's damaged. It looks like he's just potentially spun it, and it's gradually rolled back onto the curb, and because they've got the big red sausage curbs on the inside there, and these cars are so low to the ground, it's just lifted the rear end off the ground ever so slightly.
Just out of interest, is the curb acting... Is the curb acting as a fulcrum? Sorry, I do apologise to everybody.
Inside jokes.
To be an inside joke at some point.
I love that. But yes,
it comes from many years ago, and it was here at Silverstone, so it's appropriate that I tell the story.
Yes.
I described a car that was beached on a curb as being like a seesaw, and then the other commentator that I was working with corrected me and said, no, I think the curb is acting as a fulcrum. And then I replied, isn't that exactly what a seesaw is? So that's the story behind it.
He's actually just gestured to the marshal, sort of, can we not push it? And he's now walking away, very annoyed, doing that thing where a driver looks back at the car hoping that it's miraculously recovered. But no, it's still very much parked there, so they're going to get a team out. So good call on the safety car, because it's not like he was off and out of the way and no one was going to go near it. It's right on the apex of one of the most difficult corners on the circuit, so it's not really... It sort of makes a chicane more interesting, you could say, for a driver, but not in the way that you'd want in the form of safety, let's say.
No, Graham Charman, I mean, that's a driver that applies that Juno to any category that will take it, be it the Castle Coombe Sports Series, and pretty much every club that has sports car racing on its itinerary has seen Graham Charman on the entry list at some point. It's unfortunate that his race has come to an early end here, but it's hopefully not in any need of repair at all, and he can be back out there for race 2. The critical thing, though, with 4 minutes and 18 to go...
I know what you're going to say.
Yes, is the fact that Michael Genvi is right under the rear wing of Bonamy Grimes.
It's something different, sorry.
It's something different, yes. However, I don't think we're going to get green flag running again in this race, sadly. We have 4 minutes to go.
Charman's back in the car, by the way.
Okay.
He's back in the car. They're going to push it just so we can at least get going. But the number 7 LMP3 is on track.
Is it? Okay.
It should go past you any second.
Okay, well, I did hear a big rumbly V8, and yes, it wasn't the the Duquin chassis. So yes, the Ligier is out there, which is great, because that means, yes, it's done 2 laps. So that means that hopefully they're giving it a little bit of a toe in the water now, systems check, and hopefully it can be up to full strength and we can have an LMP3 battle come the second race of the day. Now, the second race of the day as well, the grid is formed by the second fastest times from qualifying as opposed to your race 1 results.
I love that rule.
Yes, so that means that hopefully he won't be right at the back of the grid. I imagine he'll be somewhere in the mid-pack, because he never really got to show the car's full potential in qualifying before it's practically expired. You described it in qualifying being on fire, and that was not an exaggeration. So didn't get the full pace out of the car, but nonetheless won't have to work his way through the entire field in race 2 should he be able to take part. Well, car comes past my position now. And thankfully, yes, does look like it's in full song. The engine is at full throat. But sadly, the safety car is still out there, even though Graham Charman is also now back on the circuit, just coming through the loop now in full swing. But unfortunately, we are going to finish this race under safety car.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there might have been a chance that they just called it in time, but just as Charman is now starting to catch up with the tail of the field, the safety car had just come out of Luffield and gone past the pit entry, lights still on, and of course it's a bit too late for them to then say, right, we're going to pull it in. Yes. So there's your answer there. But yeah, great to see the number 7 back out. Gorgeous looking thing. He's just given it a bit of throttle here just to potentially accelerate, decelerate, get some heat in the brakes, and it just pops and bangs like mad. Charman's just come rattling through here. I think he might have been involved in a little bit of contact in that, because the front right part of the bodywork seems slightly away from the rest of it. It seems like it's slightly unhinged, so not sure whether he maybe has gone down the inside of somebody, maybe hit their left rear and then spun around onto the curb or something. But
well, he was sharing track with the number 20, wasn't he, at the time, and just casting my eye, I don't think I saw any obvious damage on the car of Ellis, but certainly not ideal for Charman. Hopefully that is a quick fix, but we are going to end this race under safety car conditions. It gives the false impression of a very, very close race when you look back at TSL timing on the archive. Sometimes if you do trawl through archives as I do, so look at a race from 2007, top 15 cars all finished within 18 seconds. Something tells me that isn't actually accurate.
No, it's like when I mean, getting on this subject very briefly while we are still under safety car, you know, everybody says nowadays that Formula One is boring, and to some extent I sometimes agree. However, when you look back at older results, I think we often do look at it with rose-tinted glasses, because you see the top 3 are covered by like a minute and a half. You know, first to second is like 50 seconds, and everyone else is a lap down, and it's a bit... it's the closest it's ever been now. Yeah,
there's also the argument of, oh well, they're having to manage tyres, they're having to manage this, that and t'other. Well, back in the day, they used to have to manage the cars so they'd actually reach the checkered flag. I mean, regularly, if you finished the race, you had a decent shot of being in the points, you know.
And you are absolutely right. We do look back at through rose-tinted glasses, because I remember the sort of the Prosenna years at McLaren, and people would say at the time it was boring because the McLaren would always win.
Yeah, didn't they win like 15 of 16 races or something?
Exactly that. So
and now people complain when Mercedes do it.
When we have a Mercedes here, but they said it as well in Red Bull times when the Adrian Newey cars were so dominant. It's just it's the way it works.
Yeah, well that's it. Like the thing is that like I'm on a bit of a rant now, so I apologise everybody that's listening. If you do disagree with me, then that's perfectly fine.
Safety car train is just coming up to Wellington, just so you know.
Okay, I'll make this quick then. You know, people say that Formula One is all about the car, and that's the only reason that Hamilton wins. And it's like, yes, but did Vettel win all of his championships because he had the worst car? Did Schumacher win all of his championships because he had the worst car? They don't win if they've got a bad car. Like that's pretty much most of the battle won, but they still have to pedal it around. So these drivers that do not a very great job some weekends where they finish 16th, you know, they're still some of the most talented drivers in the world. Anyway, the field makes their way through the second to last corner. If you want to argue with me about that, tweet me at Chaz Draycott on Twitter, and we'll get going. No, I don't like arguing. I like to get on with everybody. We all have our opinions. But the safety car still has its lights on, so it will lead the field across the line.
At the entry end of pit lane, I have 2 trophies. So James, that we spoke to earlier on, the championship coordinator, has brought out 2 glorious cut glass trophies, which are standing by. Also, the live stream team are standing by to do an interview. So, as we will have 2 class winners, we'll flip-flop our interviews, if you like. So, one for the live stream and one for me, and then we'll swap over, and they'll get trophy and Carver as well, which is standing by for our 2 class winners.
That's what you want on a sunny day, isn't it? A bit of Carver.
Well, yeah, but only if it's just come out of the fridge.
Yeah, that's true.
You'd have to do some preparations. So that's sort of that's for evening barbecue, I think.
Oh, I could go for
afternoon in the fridge and then an evening barbecue.
Oh yeah, definitely. However, we do have our race result then. Grimes takes the win in the wonderful LMP3 machinery. Genvy takes second place, and he had a very, very good chase to get there as well throughout that one. Third place goes the way of number 74, James Abbott, with the number 20 of Bradley Ellis winning the Revolution class. Chamberlain finishes in 5th place. Whether it's Matthew or Richard, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I've been told already, but there we go. 5th place in the CTR development, CTR01. Great self-developed car, that. The number 55 machine finishes in 6th place with Chris Short at the wheel. Behind him is the number 6 of Stephen Lake. Then we have the number 23 of Jason Rishover in 8th place ahead of Sir Chris Hoy in 9th in car 70. The top 10 is rounded out by the number 44 of Matt Brooks. Behind him is the number 80 of Richard Wells in 11th position. Andy Chittenden finishes in 12th place overall, ahead of the number 71 car of Manhal Alas in the Revolution A1. And then the 2 cars further down that had issues, but did still manage to get classified at the end of the race. So we had a full field classified at the end, which is always what you want. The number 5 of Graham Charman and the number 7 of Simon Evans. And as Adam alluded to earlier, we hope to see that car back out a bit later on. But that is the first race of our day completed. We'll of course have interviews in just a moment, and then I believe it'll be time for a lunch break, which is actually going to put us back on time now, which is good.
Yes, in theory, lunch break should end at 1:30, although it has been known that we do start a little earlier even after a lunch break. So if you are either tuning in on the YouTube live stream or here on the spectator banks at Silverstone, worth milling around your chosen vantage point maybe 10 or 15 minutes before we're scheduled to go racing at 1:30, just so you don't miss any of the action.
Absolutely right, thank you, Adam. Now, just trying to see whereabouts they are on track.
They're just in front of me onto the Wellington Straight now, under the safety car conditions still. I can't think of a situation in which I'd want to drive a Citroën DS3 less than being followed by a 5.5 litre V8 LMP3 car.
Yeah, but what a feeling of power that they're not allowed to overtake you.
I know, but I think back to my driving lessons in a Citroën DS3 on the Isle of Wight, and I'm just thinking that I would be substantially less comfortable with that amount of power on my shoulders.
Yeah, they've just come into my sight now, actually, into the final corners. And yes, we are. Our commentary is going out live on the live stream as well, on the BARC YouTube page. YouTube channel, if I'm going to say it correctly.
It's quite a substantial package of live streaming this year, isn't it, from the British Automobile Racing Club. Very impressive stuff.
Indeed, yeah, it's great to have it, because at the end of the day, you know, when we don't have physical crowds here for the event, it's great that people can still tune in and watch from home as well. So it's great to have that on board, and you know, we get to share the atmosphere of the event with even the people that aren't actually here physically in person as well. So it's great to be able to at least put the message across there. But the story of my lunchtime is going to be going to buy my coloured pens, as I've
right,
explained to these guys. We have a massive list.
And we've got Brady Ellis behind him as well in the Revolution class. Magnificent stuff. We've got James Bailey just going to hand him a little trophy as well. Let's just let him get out of the car first. James, it would take me a while to get out of that car, I think, with my knees. It was good. There he is. Did you want to hand a trophy in, and we'll see if we can grab a quick word with Bob. There he goes, look. All smiles down here. What a shame to finish under the safety car, wasn't it? However, he was pushed the whole way by Genby, wasn't he? Mike Genby was not going to let him get away. Here he goes. Bob, we spoke a little bit earlier, didn't we, in the paddock, and look, what a beautiful car to drive. And hey, the only thing is, though, Mike Genby just wouldn't let you get away, would he?
Yeah. Well, I don't think this car is used to having a Citroen C1 as a pace car going out, so the tyres were stone cold when we went into the first lap, so I just had to manage it a bit carefully, bring the tyres up to temperature on my first couple of laps, and then I had the legs really. But yeah, he gave me a go. He's a monster through sector too.
My word, isn't he,
I think he had purple through there. But yeah, once I got a rhythm going, it was fine, pretty easy. Just shame about safety car, but never mind.
It's not how we want to finish, but then again, we still had a good sort of 15 minutes of solid racing, didn't we? And you can't keep the smile off your face, can you, Luke?
Yeah,
you going to let me have a drive one day?
yeah, why not?
Must be mad. Congratulations, Paul. Well done. I'm going to grab a word with Bradley, so I'll just let him finish off. He's just talking to the race commentator. Let's have a look at these cars in, shall we, whilst we're down here. Of course, this is your Revolution class. When I just look at this, can you imagine open top as well? Let's have a look around, see if you can get a little pokey look. The steering wheel looks like it's straight out of an F1 car. It's absolutely unbelievable. It really is. And then if you just come around and have a look at the back as well, these cars, wow, they've been thumping around Silverstone here, haven't they? What a treat that was. And guess what? That was only the first race of the day. We got there's a second race a little bit later to bring you as well. So if you want to catch even more sports prototype, you certainly can. Let's grab a quick word with Mr. Ellis here. Congratulations. Looks like quite a tricky race to get going with. And then, of course, we don't really want to finish under the safety car, but it does happen. Then it was just a case of taking it home.
Yeah, I mean, my race is a bit non-eventful really. I sort of got a gap from the guys behind. They were just battling, so yeah, just sort of cruise around really.
Just cruise, I like that. How can you cruise around in just that? Look at it, it looks a monster.
Yeah, I tried not to hurt the tyres. Andy needs to have a little go later, so no, it was great fun. Yeah, shame it finished under a safety car, but yeah. These things happen. So.
Always nice to pick up a class win. Like you said, you're not racing later.
No, so a good friend of mine, Andy Cummings, who I've raced with before, he's gonna do the second race. So it should be good.
Congratulations, well done. Enjoy
Cheers.
the rest of it. You can put your feet up now, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely.
I'll have a beer.
Have a beer, good man. Brad Ellis taking the Revolution class win. Right, I think it's actually time for, might be time for a little bit of lunch now. So we're going to head off and we'll come back for the racing action a little bit later this afternoon. Thank you.
Since the resurface, it's a lot quicker. But we've also got the new engine in here as well, so we wanted to see how the new engine was, and it's got a bit more punch out the corners now, so it's brilliant.
It's a shame to finish behind a safety car. I mean, it's motor racing, but it is always a bit sad.
It is, yeah. You always want to take the checkered at full speed, really. But that is what it is, and we've got another go this afternoon. So,
Thank you very much indeed. Great to have a chat to you. Fantastic.
Super 150s and Max 5 Racing Championships. We'll see you.